Hi, welcome back to Country Basket Weaving. I'm your hostess, Sandy Atkinson. Today we're going to be working on Wild Things Visions, and it's a basket I've created. It has a pattern on the bottom of it. I've worked in some naturals in the sides. A friend told me that this would be really pretty to put an arrangement in and use some of the material I've used in the sides in the arrangements, but it could be used for other things too. Our material and cut pattern for today is as follows. You're going to need 5-inch flat, cut 12 pieces, 30 inches long, 3/16 flat oval, 10 pieces, 34 inches. You're also going to need some number 2 round that's dyed and your color choice, number 3 round natural, and number 3 round dyed, 1/2 inch flat, 1/2 inch flat dyed, 5/8 inch flat oval. I've also put in some jute and or yarn, some creative twist for the filler. I've used 4 philodendron sheaves, and I've used some palm and fluorescence. I've already laid out my base here. I have my larger reed, my 5/8 flat here, and my 3/16 flat oval is laid in the middle. I have 6 pieces of the 5/8 and 5 pieces of the 3/16 laid out. Mark your centers on the wrong side. The first piece that you're going to weave is going to be your 3/16, and I've marked my center one here so I can always stay on the center of this basket. I'm going to weave over first, so with the 3/16 piece I'm going to be picking up my 3/16 flat oval. Bring it across until you line up your centers. Then come in with the 5/8, and now I'm going to pick up my 5/8 inch pieces and weave this across. I'm going to be spacing this as I go along because this weave gets to be quite tight and it's just too difficult to go back and space it. So I have a scrap piece of 1/4 inch, and that's what I'm going to use for a spacer, and I'm going to pull everything up tight. Make sure my centers are lined up here, and I'm going to need another piece. Up here I'm weaving another piece of 5/8 inch flat. I could probably get rid of my spoke weight. That will help a little bit at this point, as long as I can keep everything together. Line up my center marks and draw it in. Use my spacer again, and I'm going to space it 1/4 inch. When I have all this spacing done on here, then I'm going to come back up here and I'm going to space 1/4 inch between each one of my vertical spokes. Then I'm going to, when I do all this, take a few minutes. You can take a little more time than I do and do a really good job. Get these little squares within a square to create this pattern. Remember, when you're spacing, you always start from the center and work out. Okay, when we have it all spaced, then I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to weave another 3/16 inch flat oval piece. And so it's every other one. I'm going to end my weaving, line up my center, I'm going to end my weaving with my 5/8 inch pieces. Now I've already done this, so I'm going on to the next pattern here. See how that creates a beautiful basket bottom. Oh, I'm going to leave these clamps on so that I don't mess up my spacing. And I'm going to weave the last 2 in to show you exactly how I was done. And this is where it starts getting a little tight as I work out. So just take a minute and line everything up. Make sure your spacing is correct. And I'm weaving in my last piece. And again, I'm going to use my spacer and pull everything up. Then I like to use my 4 clothespins on the end, on the corners here, because once I have this all spaced, I don't want it to get messed up. Now I'm taking my number 2 round that I've dyed, and I've dyed this a brown, and I'm going to twine the base. Remember, we have an off center, so we have 2 different end lengths, and we have a crimp. And I'm going to start on an underweave, so I'm going to come here at the side, and I like to stay away from my corners. So I've looped that on an underweave, taken the one on the left, it goes behind the next spoke. As I weave this along, it gets really tight in here. So to save your fingers, you may want to use a tool to push this in here. Make sure it's flat up against the basket. Remember, you watch your corners. You have regular and irregular corners. All right, this one shows good how that is really hard to get up in there. It's just so tight on this basket. That's why I recommend number 2 round on twining this base. That's when you need to come back with your tool and push that up in there and get it right next to the basket nice and tight. We need to do 2 rows of twining. I want to go over the corner real quick, so I'm trying to hurry around the corner so I can show you again. Okay, now that I'm at my corner, I need to come back in here and pack this in tight. Screwdriver works good. This is an irregular corner. See how that slides down in there? We don't want that to happen, so leave it straight out. Bring your left one around first, then bring your right one around, and that locks that corner in. Then just go right back on your regular twining pattern and continue twining. When you get your 2 rows done of your twining, you're going to re-wet it if you have to, because it's going to dry out as you work on it. And then you're going to upset your base. Right now my wrong side is up, so this is the side that I'm going to upset. When I have my 2 rows done, I'm going to upset them like this. My wrong side will be in and my right will be out. I've already done that, and also for time's sake, I went ahead and started the first 3 rows, and they're just very simple rows. When you weave your first 2 rows in, your first 3 rows like I've done here, make sure you do not pick up your flat oval pieces. They are simply going to lay out to the side. You're not going to pick up any of them. There's 5 on each side. Let them lay out straight. Start your weaving. It's just an over-under pattern. Start it at one spot, weave around, use lots of clothespins to hold everything in tight. When you do your second row, give it a turn and start it on another side so you don't get that bulk buildup with the overlaps. Okay, now that I have these 3 rows woven in and I have my ends sticking out here, I'm going to do some twining, and I've chosen some jute and some yarn. I thought this was a real pretty color combination. The texture is a little bit different, and that's kind of the look we want on this basket. I'm going to loop it over, both pieces together, and I have a long piece. I made sure my length went around 4 times. So I do have a long piece. I've looped it over, and I'm just going to twine, just like I would do with reed. I'm going to twine this around. And I'm twining them together. I don't really care if they get twisted. It kind of gives it a nice look. I know we have to work around these pieces. I've kind of found if I clamp them and pull them out of the way, it makes it a little bit easier to work. And this whole thing is going to tangle. It always does when we twine. And I think this does more so because it's fabric. And I'm just twining. I twined for 2 rows. Watch your corners when you come around. Keep everything nice and tight, but not too tight. When you come around with your reed, when you do those first 3 rows, make sure you form the corner on each one also. Again, I'm going to pull these pieces down and out of the way. But I think you get the idea here. We're going to twine with this jute and yarn for 2 rows. Okay, I'm going on to the next one. I've already done that. I'm going to backtrack a little bit. I want to spend some time on building the sides up. Oh, this is kind of neat. What I did here is when I joined my two pieces of jute, when I come to the end of it, I tied them in knots and then I frayed out the ends. Again, it gave the look of the wild look that I wanted in this basket. After I did my 2 rows of twining, I put in 2 more rows of the brown, just over and under. Then I did 2 more rows of twining up here in my dark brown that I've dyed. And when I come back here where I've started, I'm going to use my needle nose pliers and I'm going to do a crimp because I'm going to be turning on this spoke here, the one before I started, and bringing this one around from the back and put another crimp on the one coming from the back, coming from the front, going to the back, and bring that one around. What I'm going to do here is create a little hill on here, so then we can do some more designing on the basket. When I weave going backwards, which I'm doing now, I must pick up the one on the left, take the right one under it, and around the spoke. The reason I have to do that is so that I can continue to have this smooth pattern that I want, and it won't look like I'm going backwards. Okay, I'm going to do that a few more times for you. I pick up my left one, take my right one around, and then bring my left one down. Pick up my left, and pull it back out of the way, take my right one around. I'm going underneath of it. Pull up my left, pull it back. My right one goes around, underneath my left one. And I just keep repeating this. I'm going to come over to where the corner is, and I'm going to twine on the one around the corner, come back here, and put my crimps on because I'm going to turn. Those crimps are important. If you don't put them on, the reed will break. Let me set this down for a second and straighten out my twining. Okay, take my pieces around. One goes to the front, one goes to the back. Now as I weave back, I am on the correct weave, so I'm just going to continue twining like I would normally twine, going from the left to the right. I'm going to twine back, twine on the one I turned on, twine on the next one, put my crimp on. So I'm increasing by 1 spoke each time I go back and forth. And by doing this, I'm creating this smooth hill, and it's going to be a smooth transition for me to continue weaving a little later. I'm going to back up and twine this again, going backwards, the same pattern, the same way I just did it. And I'm going to come and I'm going to increase by 1 spoke again on this side. So twine on my next spoke and crimp it and do a turn. Continue this around until I've increased it for about 2 or 3 more rows. There's no really set pattern on this basket. You're just getting creative and using your own ideas, taking some ideas I give you, and just continue to grow and have fun with them. But create this little hill. What I did on one of the baskets was use some blue reed and created a water scene here and made it flow like that way. It was just kind of pretty, and I'll show you that basket in just a minute. We're going to go to our next one here. As I take out this one here, I'd like to show you I've already done the little hills on it. I have a hill over here, and of course the hill I started over here. Now, to fill in these little valleys, and this is what's kind of fun, I'm going to start with my palm inflorescence, and I'm going to come back in here and lay a butt up in there, and just weave that in. And then add another one here, and again lay that butt out because those are kind of pretty and it's nice to see them. And weave the tip end around. And I leave the ends kind of dangling in here. I think they kind of create an interesting effect. I like to use my shorter ones when I'm down here in the valley and kind of, maybe every other one. Weave this one back. I'm still doing an over-under weave, alternating my weave each time. This is a longer piece, so I'm going to start it up there a little ways. And I'm filling in this valley. Weave this one out. I've got all long pieces. I'm looking for some shorter ones to kind of fill this up in here. Pack them in tight. Now I know it's hard to pack these in tight because they grow so irregular, but do the best you can at packing them in. And then I'm going to come over and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, just filling these in. I have my tips here from the other side that I'm kind of playing with. I'm going to work these in. You can get real creative on this part of the basket. There's nothing to really follow. You're just doing your own thing. But you need to fill in this valley a little bit. Now these are long pieces. I need some shorter ones that won't take me out so far. Like here's some good short ones that I can just fill in this valley with. Then I'm going to take, I have 4 philodendron sheaves in this basket, and I love working with these. These are really pretty. They do need to soak for quite a while. Overnight is good too. The same way with your palm here, that needs to soak overnight. Open it up. Your leaf is kind of curled. You're going to open it up, and I'm going to cut it so I have 3 sections. So that'll take 2 cuts, starting here at the bottom. They get real fragile down here at the end, so just be very careful. The cut does not have to be even. And you're going to cut all the way up to the top, about 2 or 3 inches from the top. Come down, and I'm going to repeat that again. I'm doing this so that I will be able to use my 3 ends and braid. Most everyone knows how to do just a basic braid like we do in our little kids' hair and stuff, so that's what we're doing. Come in here and lay this in here. Loop over your first one. Okay, this one I'm going to put this palm out here, or this top of it out rather. And I've got one coming here, one out of the next one, and one behind. I'm going to take my first one on the bottom and bring it over. Take my next one, it goes over 2, behind 1. And it's just a braid, over 2, behind 1, just kind of fill it in. Weave out your ends, overlap on over here, over your palm over here. Come and get your next one, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to split this 3, so you have 3 ends, lay it on here, and you're going to braid that piece on. Then you're going to come over to your other valley on the other side and repeat it, and use 2 more, and repeat the same thing over here so you have all of those in. When you've done that, then what we need to do, we still have hills and valleys going up and down this basket, so what we need to do is to start filling in reverse so that we fill in the lower spots and end up with a top that's fairly even. I can show you on this one what I've done. We'll kind of talk about this for a minute. On this one I use the blue in here, like I say, to kind of represent the water flowing. Then I've worked in here a few more rows of twining. And after you do that, make sure everything packs down really tight. And our whole idea is to get this an even surface, going around here. I've done, when I have my twining packed in the way I want it, and I'm fairly even, I'm going to do 2 rows. This row here is going to show. That's why I went ahead and did it with the brown. This natural won't show. It'll be under our rim. And it's just an over-under basket weave. Then we're going to come in here. If the weaver comes in front of the spoke, remember the spoke gets cut off flat, even with the surface up here. And then our other one, you can put a point on it, and we're going to tuck. And I come down and tuck it into my twining. We're just going to work it down in there. Okay? Then another thing I did with these, and these are what causes our vision, so to speak, so we can see through this basket, is I've put my 4 fingers in here for a measurement, and then bent this down on top, and that's going to grab underneath our rim. But as I did this, I also looked and made sure that visually they were about even. I'm going to do this real quickly. Again, I can use my 4 fingers as a guide here. And bring these up. Again, we're going to catch them under the rim, and that's what's going to hold them in place. I've used 5/8 inch flat oval for my rim. Of course, I've had that soaking. Well, and we're going to, remember, whittle this down. Always whittle down about 3 inches. Make a flat surface there so that when it overlaps, now I know I have a lot of clothespins on here to hold each one of these. I'll try to eliminate some as I go. And we're going to work this around. You have to take your time working these in because they're going to pop up on you. The rim will hold them down. When I get back to the other side, I'm going to cut it off, overlap my whittle, and cut it off. You won't have to work so quickly, and you can be real careful with yours and space it nice and make everything fit. Okay, I'm back to where I started. Overlap, and I'm going to cut it off where my overlap began, which is about that 3 inches. It's kind of tough. I'd like to also come in here and trim this down just a little bit so I don't have such a drop off with this end piece here. Just makes it smoother looking. And we're going to clamp that on. Then I came in here with my scissors, and all these little ends I have sticking up, I'm going to cut, about a 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit less than a 1/2 inch, all the way around, so that these won't show when I put on my inside rim. And I'm going to do that. I dropped it. Again, we're going to whittle it off. And we're going to put on the inside rim on opposite side. Make sure the flat side fits on the basket. I'm going to skip that part real quickly because I want to show you how I did all this twining on the outside of that basket. We're going to take another piece, and I like to use the brown on this one because it shows up a little bit, and I really don't want it to distract from my naturals that are inside. Again, put a crimp on it. I'm going to start down here towards the bottom, and I just picked one out randomly, and pull this through. Put my crimp right here at the edge, and then I twined, but as I twined, I put in an extra little twist. So I did a twine step, but then I put that little extra twist in. When I come to a large gap, and I have them at my 4 corners, I have a large gap here, I'm going to do several twists of the reed and then go into a twine. Maybe that was a little bit too far. There we go. I'm going to create a pattern going up the basket and then back down, again causing those like hills and valleys. See, I pulled this one out. You won't have this problem because you're going to do your rim first. And you're going to lash it on so it's going to be secure. And then you're going to come in here and you're going to create this up and down. And that's how I did that. And don't forget to put your extra twist in here. Let me show you quickly on here. See how I have this kind of, it's just randomly going up and down, following around the basket. I did 3 rows. When I came to end it, I had to add a new piece too. And I simply added a new piece up in here. And when I came to the ending, I found a spot to either tuck up into your rim, you could end it that way, or you could just, where you've created a spot here, you could end it right there. You'll enjoy making this one, it's fun. Next week, We're going to be working on a cute little basket. A little bucket basket has a wire handle. I'll look for you next week.